Okay, everybody, we are happy to be here again with a new episode for our Faith at Words podcast. I am Elder Pamela Robinson Smith, and you are.
Kyrie Smith McCall.
And today we're going to do a take two on our conversation about financial wellness. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right to it. Okay, here we go. Okay. So, like I said, we've talked about financial wellness before. And so, this is a second take to that same conversation because, as we've talked about often, our whole podcast is about letting people know about the 8 dimensions of wellness and ways they can apply it, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Kyrie, you start out for us.
But before we get started, let's give some credit. The material we'll be talking about comes from the article Frugal Minimalism: 9 Tips to Save Money by Living with Less by Cindy LaMathe. Our template of discussion also comes from the 8 Dimensions of Wellness concept by Dr. Peggy Swarbrick.
And the 8 dimensions of wellness include social, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, physical, environmental, financial, occupational. So today we're focusing in on financial. So we have 9 helpful tips. And Kyrie's going to let us know about the first 5, and I'll let you know the rest.
Tip number 1 is eliminate everything except the basics. Tip number 2 is quality over quantity. Tip number 3, having a one in, one out mindset. Tip number 4, reduce digital subscriptions. Tip number 5 is declutter and sell unused items.
Tip 6, limit dining out and embrace simplicity in food. Tip 7, avoid lifestyle inflation. Tip 8, shop with a list. And tip 9, DIY often, but only when necessary. So let's go into it. Eliminate everything but the basics. Kyrie, tell us about this financial expert.
Melanie Musson, a financial expert at insurance provider, says bare necessity living shouldn't be long term, but it's key to cut down on non essentials and focus more on important things. The result is a better appreciation of a less busy life, as well as discovering the most important things in a quicker fashion.
So, I can tell you that since my career has taken a more simplistic approach or season, I have learned that some of the things that I thought were so fun and so enjoyable, I didn't need necessarily. So, for example, I was a definitely a retail therapy aholic. I like to shop, but I also learned in this season that we're in right now that we need to shop for the essential things, the basics, not for the things that we don't really need. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. It's important to have basically focus on the most important things instead of having the mindset of I want it now. It's like realizing that you want it now, but do you need it? That's the difference between wants and needs.
That's right. That's something that we all have to learn one way or another. Prioritize quality over quantity. Kyrie, you tell us about our expert, Mr. Dennis.
Dennis Shershikoff, a professor of finance at City University of New York, believes that fewer high quality items can reduce frequent replacement and thus helps to save money. For example, buying a higher priced coat is likely more durable than a cheap coat in the long run.
So, Mafe Elcado, who's also a finance expert at Coupon Snake, says that individuals making healthy spending choices and living within financial means Frugal means that frugality is not cheapness. So we're not, it's basically saying that we're not saying that you buy the cheapest of the cheap all the time, because certain things you cannot buy cheap if you want it to last. And they gave a good example of a coat. So I'm not going to buy a coat from the dollar store and think it's going to last me through the winter. What do you think?
Yes, it's important to you don't want to get the most expensive item, but at the same time you don't want to get the cheapest item. You have to basically find a mid-range for what you're looking for.
That's going to be to give you the longevity that you need for that particular item. Adopt a one in, one out mindset. So Professor Dennis had something else to say. Tell us about it, Kai.
He said, when something new is brought into the home, we should remove the equivalent item. It helps reduce clutter and you employ critical thinking when it comes to acquiring new items.
He also said that you become a more thoughtful with your buying, and it helps you to curb that urge to buy and spend so often. So when I was talking about me being a retail therapyaholic, I can attest to this. We have to learn how to practice. If I bring something in, what's going to go out? So, like, for example, I love shoes. Okay. And your dad always says, before you buy another pair of shoes, which ones are you willing to give up? Because you can't, there's not an infinite amount of space in a house, right?
Hmm.
So, even if you like to collect something, you got to be willing to sacrifice something so that you don't clutter your house, which can clutter your thinking.
Yes, I've seen plenty episodes of the show Hoarders where something like that, they keep buying something and then eventually it snowballs and escalates into a catastrophe.
Until catastrophe is right. So it helps with your mindset. I mean, you got to think about that. You like there's not an infinite amount of space in a house or an apartment. So we got to be smart when we're spending our money. Okay, this one's a good one. Reduce digital subscriptions. Tell us about that, Kai.
When it comes to digital services, a lot of people are unknown about this, but it can be a silent financial drainer. What may start with small costs monthly can snowball to hundreds of dollars on an annual basis.
Re- Regular review of your services will help you remove the ones that you barely use, and that's big savings. So this one speaks loud to me because I guess it's been a couple of years now. We stopped with the cable. We cut cable off because it was getting too expensive. And then streaming was getting more available, and all the shows that we wanted to watch was available through streaming. Streaming. My mouth is not working right today. Um, but then we realized that the more new ones came out, we wanted to try it, and then the costs start to creep up again. So then me and your dad were just talking about this the other day. A lot of these streaming services offer some of the same shows. So you really need to look at which ones make the most sense and then just cut out the ones that are duplicates really.
Yes, going back to what you just said, since I have a Roku at my house, usually, let's say if you put a certain TV show on, you search it, it'll tell you what streaming services that the show or the movie is on. Then you can decide which one do you want to go with. And for myself personally, I had to make some hard decisions because I remember I had at one point I had a Netflix account. It's inactive at the moment,
Hmm.
but I realized I got the top version without the ads, and so that was costing maybe $15 a month. And so I realized when I had to make some changes, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna have to go and just basically focus on the ones that are by comparison are cheaper, and the ones also what we just said, the ones that you use on a regular basis.
Yeah. For me personally, I use Paramount Plus because that gives me all of the CBS shows that I like. I use the free one, Pluto, right?
Mhm.
What other ones? Peacock, I use that. And then like Netflix, I always thought was too expensive. No, no, offense, Netflix. But you just got to realize what you use the most and then cut out the rest because small money adds up. And 15.99 may not be a lot by itself, but if you're paying for multiples, it can truly add up. So this was a good tip that I really appreciated. Declutter and sell unused items. What about it, Kai?
Selling used and unused items can create a more streamlined living environment as well as gaining an instant financial boost. Most people are unaware of the value of unused items that sit in the many areas of their house.
It's an old saying, but one man's trash is another person's treasure, or one person's trash is another person's treasure. I can tell you that this tip right here has helped financially for our family business. You know why?
Why?
Because we sell gently used items on eBay, Poshmark, and sometimes Facebook Market. And sometimes the items are things that were personally ours, and sometimes it was items that we got maybe from the thrift store or a flea market or something for very cheap. So this definitely can be a financial boost for you because so I have say if I have a camera, I don't use it anymore. But and I look it up and you if you look it up on those things, you can see what the value of things are. And you sold some stuff on eBay, right?
Mhm.
So this is a good tip. All right. Limit dining out and embrace simplicity in food. What about it, Kai?
Home cooked meals can be a financially sound alternative to eating out and food delivery. Focus more on whole, unprocessed ingredients and curtail costs such as gourmet coffee and takeout.
Meal prepping. That helps you spearhead wanting to cook, and it can assist you in keeping on your budget. So I know that you understand, and so do I. Uber Eats, DoorDash, and all the other services, very convenient services, right?
Yes.
However, if you continually order from there, you're paying fees more than you would pay if you went and if you cooked it yourself or you went and picked it up yourself. And I don't know if you realize this, but they mark their food up when they're on these apps than if you go into the restaurant.
Yeah, so basically it's almost as bad as the streaming services.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, I know that we live in a capitalist world and everybody wants to make money, but when you work hard for your money and it's not as hard to come by as you, not as easy to come by as you would want it, you got to look at these little things. And cooking your own food is a big one. I'm proud of you because you're learning to cook more and more new recipes. And that's going to save you more and more money because you only spend your money at the grocery store and then you can make as much as you want and eat as much as you want, right?
Yes.
Okay. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Tell us about that.
When it comes to lifestyle inflation, the goal is living below one's means despite a rising income. Ideal areas to put excess income would be avenues such as savings and investments.
This approach can help with maintaining stability and financial freedom. And this tip right here is very teaching to me because once upon a time I made the nice six-figure salary. However, the more you make, the more I was spending, which did not give me a lot to save. So if you're able to increase your income, live a little bit below your means because that money you save can go into things that are going to help you in the long run.
Yes, I mean, honestly, buying a expensive luxury SUV definitely wouldn't be an ideal choice, or at least like you said, setting a budget. How much are you willing to spend for this vehicle, or
Hmm.
just like with a lot of things, just setting a budget, seeing how much you want to spend for, and just sticking to it.
Right. Just because you start making a higher salary doesn't mean you said, "Oh, I can start spending bigger." If you lived on a lower salary for a year or 2 years, then maintain that. You might treat yourself here and there, but don't go crazy. Shop with a list. What about that?
It's beneficial to make a list before you go shopping and sticking to that list.
Resist the temptation to stray from the list. So, one thing tip that I learned a long time ago is never go food shopping when you're hungry. You know why?
Why?
Because everything that you see that looks delicious in the supermarket, you want to put it in your cart and bring it home.
Yes, especially if you're going to Costco. It's like that's especially a place where you have to make a list and sticking to it because you might see everything, you get everything that you see, and once you get to the
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 register,
register and then you see the amount, you're probably like, oh snap.
like, yeah, I spent outside my budget. So it makes a lot of sense to shop with a list and gain the discipline to stick to the list. Don't go there hungry. Eat a snack before you go to to the supermarket so you don't get hungry and expensive at the same time.
Yes, and also something that I came to my mind that when Granny was still here, she would make a list, and even when she was able to go into the grocery stores herself, she would write me a list, or maybe probably write you a list, the
Hmm.
items that she was looking for, and basically we would help her out with that. We would stick to it, and at least she knew exactly what she was looking for.
Right. Sticking to the list saves you money. All right. DIY often, but only when necessary.
A financial expert says that there are everyday habits that can save money, such as cooking your own food, washing your own car, doing your own laundry.
Other helpful tips include buying non-perishable items in bulk, curbing your impulsive spending, and leaving plumbing, electrical, and roofing issues in the hands of the experts. I'm not a plumber, I'm not an electrician, and I sure ain't a roofer. And by if you try to do your own repairs, sometimes you can cause more damage than you intended. So you got to learn what you're good at, right? So we can learn how to cook, right?
Yes.
Washing our own car is not that hard, and doing our own laundry is even easier. But the other stuff, like trying to fix things that we didn't go to school for, we didn't get training for, that can be expensive because you can cause more damage. Unless you had a granddaddy like you had who could fix anything.
Mm.
Well, Kai, this went really fast. What do you think? What did you think? Did you learn anything out of this presentation?
Yes, it really is all about us and developing habits and skills and implementing them to basically wanting to better ourselves financially and making better financial sound choices.
Hmm. It definitely is. I mean, these tips seem very realistic and down to earth. So I think that most people can learn from them. And they probably knew some of this already, and this is a good reminder to them.
Mhm.
But that's the whole point of these podcasts, not just to talk, but to say something that's important, to say something that can benefit our community, our listeners, and ourselves. I mean, I don't know about you, but I learned some stuff from these conversations. You pick the articles, you pull together the presentation and stuff, but as we're going through it, it's teaching me too. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, listeners, viewers, for tuning in. And Kyrie will figure out what the next topic of discussion will be, and I'll jump in there and chime in there to be part of the conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to call us at 833-72-RENEW or email us at itsrenewed@gmail.com. My name is Elder Pamela Robinson Smith, and your name is?
Kyrie Smith McCall.
And we are here on our Faith at Work messages, which is our podcast, and we thank you.
Thank
God,
you.
God bless you. All right, guys, let's stop sharing.